everyone. Welcome to this interview. I've got a special guest today joining us for a discussion. Jo Gifford, who I've recently met, who's a delightful, wonderful soul I've met on a course that I'm doing. So Jo Gifford is a life coach a spirit, mind and body coach. She's also a light language channel and an energy healer. So I'm going to invite Jo on. Hello, Jo. How are you?
I'm really good, Christine. Thank you so much for inviting me to have this amazing talk. I had a look at your last video on YouTube, and you talked from a perspective that I think is sorely needed on this planet now. I'm also, amongst those other things that you mentioned, I'm an inner child healer. And that's how come I resonate with what you say, because you contemplate a spiritual perspective with regard to raising our children. And because of the pressures of family life, the pressures of what's happening in the world, paying the mortgage, etc., we tend to put that aspect of raising our child on the back burner and just get them prepared to live in the world, to survive and cope in the world, teaching them how to read, to write, do arithmetic, and fit in with the world that way. But what I saw you talking about was another aspect, another facet, which I think is so important. And that is teaching them to connect with that deeper aspect of themselves. And in another way, from the inner child work perspective, it's teaching them emotional intelligence. And I'd like to talk about that, if that is okay with you.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's a great time to talk about this as we go into many changes in the world, and to highlight children and the early years is something that needs to happen. We know that school has been inverted, as has a lot of things that we're waking up to now, and all the lies that we've been given. So school and how we raise our children is just one of those lies. So the inversion of school and what they've actually done. So we always look at the opposite. So what have they actually done? They've taken children away from the family. They've taken them into age-specific groups in institutionalized setting, listening to a teacher at the front of the class and in a desk. So everything opposite to that is pretty much how it should be operating. So instead of taking children away from the family and away to secular school rooms where you all have to be at the same pace, and taking children away from their spirit in the outer realms, in the outer mind. So, and all the money's being pumped into the top end of the the schooling system and academia, and that's where they're focused. So no, it's not academia, it's actually the other end of the spectrum, down in the early years, where they need to be focusing, because I do believe wholeheartedly that our children are coming already vibrating at a very high frequency. They already have access to their blueprint and really tapped into their inner teacher. But it's how society has worked the program to start to trip the children up, so they lose their contact with that inner teacher, and they lose that contact and the inner spirit by, just whether it's music, whether it's, whatever, they've just set the family up to diminish that structure. So in going back to what you said, Jo, and higher intelligence is what is already there Children, there's a pathway for them to tap into that. And it's through the heart structure and it's through the heart intelligence that children, there's a pathway. And because we can't see it with our physical eyes, it eludes people. But energetically speaking, we can feel it there when we tune in. And people do use their intuition, and they have a sense of that. But imagine if everybody was online with their intuition 24 hours a day and just listening to that inner guidance. Well, that's what children do when they first come. So it's the tripping up them creates that wounded inner child that later in life evolves to behaviours and psychology that is not necessarily positive. Can you speak?
That's correct. Yeah. Yes, you're right on there. I'm just, as you're talking, I'm remembering 2 incidents from my childhood how I was taught in school. And what we would do every week is the teacher would line us up from the one with the highest scores in the tests down to the back right as the lowest scores in the test. So she would actually seat you in the classroom. And so it was all about competition. It was all about shame, sitting in the back and praising somebody who could answer questions instead of listening within. And another thing I remember, so I would have been maybe 5, and I went to a Catholic school, and I was taught by nuns. And we were being introduced to confession. And so the nun was at the blackboard, and she drew a big circle and she coloured it in, and she said, "This is your soul, and you come in bad. You come in full of sin." And she says, "You go to the first Holy Communion," and first confession, and she wiped out all of the colouring in of this circle, and she said, "You've now been forgiven at your first confession." And then she went through and she listed all the potential sins, like talking back to the teacher or lying to your parents. And she did X's all through that. And she said, "Now you sin, and then you fill up your soul again, and then you go to confession, and it is wiped out." So in my delving into my inner child issues, I had to really deal with being a bad person. And even though that was embedded in me as a little kid, it was still having an effect. And that's what I find when I work with people, to work out why their lives are not working, why they can't create what they want, why they can't find the right partner or the right career. That information or that perception that I got at 5 years of age shut down my belief in myself, the belief that I was worthy and valuable. And so struggled until I identified it. I wasn't able to dismantle it and turn and face it. So yes, we come in, and in a way, I've heard it described that as we come in, that's our higher self. That's our more evolved self that is born in to that little child. And in a way, it's a purposeful journey, because it is showing us, why do we have the experiences we do in those first early years? Because it's showing us what it is we've yet to learn about self-worth, self-love, value, all of those things, many, many issues. So on a spiritual level, there is purposeful good for what we came in doing. But the situation is that we got stuck. From my perspective, we've been caught on a hamster wheel of living in these very heavy, dense emotions, lifetime after lifetime. So we've never looked at those things. We've never healed them. We've never given the child the time to process them early on. So what, from my experience in talking to people and to parents, is that when a child is having an emotion, it triggers the adult watching them or being involved with them. So the teachers who've never done any internal work, never done any emotional intelligence exploration or internal work to find their divinity, are triggered by what the children are going through, whether that's anger or a tantrum or grief, and it triggers their own inner child. And so the teacher or the parent, if they've never done any internal work, tends to shut the kid down, shut them down, try to make them happy, try to distract them or put them in time out. So instead of just sitting with that child and feeling what they're going through, being with them and being present with them. And that, when you move through those emotions, you then find the divinity. And it's like it's hidden by all of these traumatic, and to a little child, this is traumatic, to find that you're not lovable just as you are. So the teaching a child that they're divine, teaching a child that there is an inner teacher, that they can trust themselves, goes hand in hand with helping them process and be okay with the emotions and the energy in those emotions traveling through them as they're expressing them. And if they're allowed to freely express them, they will tend to heal them much quicker, and their life would unfold in a completely different way.
It certainly does. And valid point there, Joe, with parents being triggered. So, and also teachers being triggered. And there's a lot of teachers in the system that do get triggered by children. And so, you know, in Montessori training, particularly the training that I did, the first aspect of the training that we did was the spiritual preparation of the teacher. And Dr. Montessori spoke about this being a fundamental point that we need to address before the teacher even goes to the child. It's the preparation of the teacher. You don't even go into a classroom until you have addressed and resolved two main themes, emotions. She said pride and anger needed to be worked on first. And in doing that and flushing out all our triggers around those things, we purge ourselves and able to hold the space in the classroom for the child to come up higher, or just even not even come up higher, because the child's already there. That's the thing. That's the thing we need to get our head around. We're not feeding them anything. We're bringing it out of them because they've already got it. And so we come beside the child and we sit and we give them a Montessori presentation with a new activity that they're going to learn. And we're in a heart space that meets theirs because their heart's already open. We have to purge all our stuff as a teacher so that we can then come alongside and be with their heart. It's absolutely beautiful. And if you sit beside a child of 2 years old and giving them a presentation, you cannot but open up your heart because their heart is radiating at such a high frequency that it just automatically puts you into a space of mutual respect and just humbleness, that you've got this opportunity to be with this soul and teach them something. It's just incredible. And I just wanted to go back also. I would recommend, if there's any parents or any teachers that are watching this and can relate to being triggered, there's a great book. And it was part of my Montessori training that we did to facilitate our journaling with purging ourselves as our spiritual preparation. The book is called Parenting from the Inside Out. And it's just phenomenal because not only it's in a context where it's easy to digest. At the end of each chapter, you've got reflection points and and different sorts of strategies in place to help you with the triggers that you're going through. And it's really good to have the triggers. That's the thing, because it tells us that we've got something to look at. So I'm going to hold this book up, and I'm not sure if it's going to come back to front or wrong way out. So Parenting from the Inside Out, thoroughly recommend it. It's a great way to start, and I think this is particularly for homeschooling parents that are being triggered and they don't know why. Just know that it's your own inner child stuff meeting your children. Yeah. So, and I know, Jo, you do a lot of work with people and transmuting and working on those triggers.
Yeah. I've learned, well, I'm of the opinion that pretty much every adult is really run by an emotional 7-year-old. That most people have on or put on at around 7 years of age a pair of glasses that have filters in them that are the 7-year-old's filters. And when we forget that we've got them on, and we are emotionally triggered throughout our life by that little one's perception. So it's not us that's emotionally reacting to things, it's our inner child. And we are, in a way, conditioned to respond like Pavlov's dog when we are triggered by an emotional situation. We can't, most of us are not sort of self-aware enough to stop and go, okay, is this really how I want to react? So in the first 7 or so years of your life, what you see, feel and hear from your mum and dad or whoever's closest to you, you absorb that like a sponge. You can't analyze or assess what you're seeing. You just take it on as gospel truth. Because your mind, your brain, the brains of little kids don't really have a thinking process until a little bit older, and they just absorb. So they're unfortunately being told about the world, told about who they are, their place in the world, from people who have wounded inner children in them. So we are overlaying our perceptions onto our kids, and they can't analyze it, they can't assess it. It becomes their gospel truth. And until somebody as an adult does their own inner work, they inevitably pass this on to their children.
They do. And in in kinesiology, there is a lot of situations where you'd find that the children actually surrogate for their parents because they don't want their parents to experience certain things. So they will actually try to take that on, and energetically they do. They surrogate the headache, where it's the whatever it is, the emotional upset. They just, as you said, they're like sponges, and they do take things on, and it doesn't belong to them, but their compassion and their heart and the love for their parents, they just jump right in. So yeah, we owe it to our children to look at our psychology and work through areas that we are a little bit stuck on, or know that there's things in the closet that don't really want to face, but we know that whatever you are repelled by is what you need to face, because there's such freedom and love and light at the end of that journey that you get from addressing all that stuck emotion, which is a weight, and it takes a toll, and it takes away a space where your light can shine in and be light about in the world.
Yeah, I recommend that any adult that is with a child, if they're going through something and it's causing you to feel uncomfortable or to be triggered, that you sit down and you breathe and feel how you're feeling in that moment. To not analyze it so much in that moment, but just to be present with the emotion. So when a child is crying, be with them, hold them, hug them, and see how you're feeling in the moment. And as you start to breathe in and out and not be afraid of what you're feeling, you are in a way helping the child. They will, as you say, they will come along on this journey with you, and they will start to feel what they're feeling, and not be afraid of it and not be told not to think it. So it's an incredibly powerful healing moment for both the adult and the child.
Yes, absolutely. And parents who aren't familiar, we know in psychology that children form all their beliefs and values about themselves and the world by age 4. So the window of opportunity to teach our children, truth and correct ways of being before 4, because we could have a child 3 years old take on, as you did, Joe, when you were 5, taking on a framework of how they think they are and who they are. And it may not be the true and correct framework, but yet they take this on and they carry it through their lifetime and outpicture that with the relationships that they form or the jobs that they take and the people who they meet. So until as an adult we realize that there's something not quite right and address it and face it and can look at it and see it for what it is and release that and have that sort of a illumination moment. So I think my point is that parents and families, teachers need to really understand that we need to look after our children from conception all the way through to 4. Children are taking on a lot in gestation and in the womb as well, whether it's vibrational from jagged rhythms, distorted artwork. It all affects the parent, the mother, and her hormonal system, and the vibration also affects the unborn child. So yeah, 4 is when they've got all their values and beliefs.
Well, what I've also come to understand is that it isn't necessarily what, say, mum and dad place upon the child directly, but if a child is watching mum and dad argue, or if the child is watching dad come home from work exhausted, depressed, etc., the child is absorbing those frequencies and forming opinions about what love is, what marriage is, what commitment is, what's work ethic. Is work a good thing? So the adult's necessity in dealing with their own emotions and their own interactions is as important as dealing with the interactions with their children. Because the kids, as I said, are just absorbing. And even though they're sitting playing in the corner of the room and you're having this deep discussion about there's not enough money, or how are we going to pay the bills, or my job is awful, the child is absorbing that, whether you understand it or not. So it's to process and feel and go on an inner healing journey in all areas of your life.
Yes, it is so true. And it's underestimated just how powerful each moment can be in a child's life. And if families are homeschooling, or there's a situation, even school holidays, there's frustration occurring in the house, just get outside, go for a walk, go to a park, just get outside, change the environment of where that energy is manifesting, and just move, shift, and walk it out. And that frustration will move through the body. So we know that the energy in the body, once it's moving, can the good stuff can happen. You get your good hormones popping in, and your oxytocin, and just starting to feel better, moving and getting away from that, the intensity of the house and the home environment. And I know some people can't get out of their house, but whatever it is, just go find nature at some point, because it's a great way. Children are so tapped into nature and the vibration of nature. So it's a really good healing tool to use.
Yeah, yeah, the frequency of nature will have a good influence on any energy that you are processing. So go and hug a tree, as they say.
Yes, absolutely. I think all this kind of knowledge will come more and more to the fore as we go through this energetic shift that we're going on, and nature is really coming to the fore, and like there is an energy veil that's being lifted, and we're starting to see what nature is really all about and what is behind nature, and the elementals and the nature spirits that are just waiting there to be seen and to be respected and to come forth with what they have got to offer us as well.
Mm. Well, actually, talking about oxytocin, to go back a little bit, there is one belief that when you hug somebody, if you hug them for at least 15 seconds, so not a quick in and out hug, but if you hug somebody at around the 15-second or so mark, you start releasing oxytocin. So, which is the love hormone, which is the hormone produced when a woman falls pregnant, just to help with the bonding and everything with the child. So make sure you hug your family. Make sure you have that contact. To for many reasons, the least of not is creating oxytocin in the system.
Yes, it's a very powerful hormone. And in my studies with infant massage, I was told about a book called The Oxytocin Factor, which identifies that oxytocin is actually also a pheromone. So it's released in the atmosphere as well. So you can breathe it in as well as feeling it internally in, affecting your body and the physiology of your body. But so, it's just such a powerful, yes, again, I think underrated, unexplored hormone that does amazing things. And just going into massage and the Massage in Schools program, realized how powerful it was. Fully clothed, peer-to-peer massage, just only on the back, the shoulder and the head. But some children didn't want to partake, and that's fine because children have got the right to say yes or no to touch. And so there was quite a few children that sat out, but they were getting the full effects and benefits of the massage because all the pheromones in the classroom were just being released by the other children. So there was a calming influence across all the children in the room. So it's really powerful. So I advocate again for infant massage, peer massage, all that. It's just helping our children with their coping mechanisms and changing the chemical makeup of the brain as well.
Absolutely. I can't say how important touch and connection is. And in fact, in the last year and a half, we've been starved of it. So I would suggest everyone make a greater effort to connect as soon as they can.
Yes. Well, yes, because we know that the electromagnetic frequency of the heart radiates outwardly and is measurable by 8 to 16 feet. So they're keeping us all apart at the moment. But if we were to get out and reconnect and have our hearts intermingling with others, I think at this point, a lot of people will feel the difference because they've been away from it for so long that they would feel the difference in the frequency of being with someone as opposed to being isolated and without. So, Jo, where can people find you if they're looking for some inner healing work?
I have a website, but I also have a YouTube channel. And on that YouTube channel, and I'll give you the link for that, there are a lot of different videos about inner child healing and how the brain works in this, and brain chemistry and physiology, a lot of other things. But be warned, there is light language in it. So if you have not come across light language before, there are some videos on there. So the knowledge of the inner child work is combined with the light language and the energetic healing. So I'll just give you the links for that, Christine.
All right. Well, I'll paste them all down below so people can find you. So thank you for that, Jo. And also just wanted to give people a tip that have got children and things are quite stressful. Know that it takes 4 hours for adrenaline to leave the body. So if your child's upset, they've got a very stressful or angry situation, they've got adrenaline pumping through their body, it will take 4 hours for that to naturally leave the body. Okay, so if you decide to massage your child's foot, it takes about a couple of minutes to neutralize that adrenaline by the oxytocin that will then flood the body. So rather than naturally waiting for that adrenaline to kick out of the body for 4 hours, you can do an immediate remedy by just massaging your children's feet, their back, whatever it is that they're accepting and giving you permission for. Yes, just a matter of seconds, and that adrenaline will be neutralized. Yeah. Okay. Well, Jo, is there anything that you'd like to say, or anything coming through that you'd like to share?
Just, it's sort of what you said a little while ago. This, what is happening with our children is so vital to the evolution of us as a species, to evolution of humanity. And for us to go where we are absolutely going, we have to look at that child. We have to look at the children in our world and help them in every way possible.
Absolutely, because we're going to we're changing paradigms. We're going into more of a golden, like, cosmic Christ consciousness. So it is now about teaching children the inner laws of life, and it's all to do with within and going within and bringing the spirit back into the learning that children, the whole environment, with the inner world. Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Jo. It's been wonderful being in your company and you sharing your energy and your frequency in this interview.
Thank you so much, Christine. This has been wonderful. Thank you.
Wonderful. I look forward to seeing your videos coming up on your channel too, Jo. So all the best, and thank you everyone for joining us, and ciao for now. We'll see you again in another video at another time. Bye.
Bye.